How does anxiety, like, how can you tell that you are living with anxiety? How does it show up in the body?
Mm. In the body, it might look like, well, actually, a really interesting one people don't often talk about is the freeze response and how we feel basically frozen. So you might notice that there's actually not much that you're feeling in your body. You're potentially a bit disconnected from your body. You're not able to feel. Or you might notice your legs feel really heavy or your arms feel really heavy and kind of numb. So that's an indication of our freeze response where we just shut down and we feel everything just feels heavy and numb. But typically what we experience is the feeling of, it could look like churning butterflies in the stomach, in the belly area, might look like a racing heartbeat. Some people feel like a weight on their chest, like you can't breathe so readily. This is more heightened states of anxiety, like where we're more going into the zone of having a panic attack or, feeling completely, overwhelmed in a situation. But that low grade, low level anxiety is usually more of that. You go through your whole day and you haven't really felt your senses. You haven't really been present in your body. And you've been all up in this thinking mind, problem solving, worrying, just trying to survive with your logical brain rather than feeling into your body and telling your body it's actually safe to be here in the present moment.
Yeah. When I was probably in my 20s and early 30s, I had a lot of anxiety and it would show up for me like a cement ball in my womb space. Like, just felt like something bad is going to happen, that like doom is around the corner. And that went away for a really long time. And then I recently went into menopause quite early, and that reignited, I'll use that word, the anxiety. And now it shows up as like liquid lava in my heart, just this like, ooh, like something's off, like this burning in my heart. So it's interesting how it can show up in the body, and then how you start to correlate with what's going on in the
Yeah.
mind and all of that. Does anything come up for you around hormones and
Oh,
anxiety? Just because I touched on menopause there, which is, your hormones go completely out of whack. I'll say they're disrupted, and that
totally.
causes all kinds of fun
So
times.
yeah, and I mean beautiful descriptions as well of the sensation. That's so perfect. It's I love connecting it to images. But look, with hormones, it's this interesting interplay where everything is connected. And we can't, as much as I wish we could just, consciously dissolve these experiences, and we probably can to some extent, but we're also humans and we have this physical vessel and our hormones do impact us. And so it's kind of like I've got this concept called the resilience shield, and we have a shield that protects us and makes us more resilient to the triggers of our life, our environment around us, the stresses, the relationships, all of those things that might be entering our space and making us feel uncomfortable or feel that zap of anxiety.
Mm.
Hormones are one of the ones that's a key part of this shield. And if we don't address that, we're just going to be so much more sensitive to what's already there. You might notice that on a previous day 5 years ago, you could receive a particular text message that has a stressful requirement in it, or a tax bill, or a difficult conversation with a family member or a friend, and you would feel maybe a bit different about it. But then when you're in this state where your hormones are fluctuating and changing, it's much harder to experience that and hold that space and have that conversation and even stay conscious, stay present of how you are reacting to the situation. With hormones around menopause, we are looking at, it's actually very similar to what happens in the PMS phase of like your menstrual cycle, where before our period, we typically notice that dip in our resilience. We're more sensitive. We want to cry. We might lash out at people we love. We're thinking, who is this person? I was so zen like a week ago.
Hmm.
And usually there's relief upon actually getting your period as well. And it's part of the hormone change that happens. Namely, the main one that's really important here is progesterone. We experience a drop in our progesterone levels, and progesterone is what creates a calming effect in the brain, and it helps us feel nice and relaxed. So it's got a protective effect against anxiety. Now, in menopause and even perimenopause, what's happening is we're producing a lot less of this hormone progesterone. In fact, we're not really producing much at all, because in order to make progesterone, we must be ovulating regularly. In perimenopause, we're ovulating less frequently. You're usually skipping a month of ovulating. It's that egg release that creates the progesterone that calms us down. Now, the body will reach its equilibrium again as you move through that phase, but it's literally like going through puberty again. It's another puberty. It's a whole adjustment of your body, your mind, your chemistry, your system, recalibrating into another state. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is what happens. And in fact, there are many, many amazing adaptive things that can happen for our resilience in the positive when we enter that stage post menopause, because we aren't experiencing these wild fluctuations of our hormones every month. We're not necessarily feeling so preoccupied with the pursuit of love, romantic love, and that kind of thing. We're just we're often more able to be focused on our projects and our desires and what we want to create in the world, because we're not distracted by, I suppose, the strong biological urge to reproduce, which is what happens when we're thinking about men and partners and sexuality and all of those things. Not that that goes, but it's just a different state. So that's pretty much what's happening. It will change the resilience. It's got a lot to do with progesterone. It's temporary, and there's a lot to support that as well. In terms of certain herbal medicines, magnesium can be amazing to help reduce some of that anxiety, particularly hormonally, and really just knowing our nervous system needs a lot of love and care around that time. And reducing or stopping alcohol altogether is probably one of the best supplements you can take, if you can think of it that way. Supplements and things can become quite expensive, but it costs nothing. In fact, you'll save money if you can get into your head, okay, if I can work towards maybe I'll see how I go a month off alcohol. Does that make me feel better? I'll see if I go 2 months off. I'll look for alternatives that I can enjoy and still maintain a social life, and all of those things. Give yourself that goal kindly and see how you feel. It's one of the best things that the evidence says you can do.
I'm sober, so I've been sober for a really long time. But for listeners, I know there are a lot of women that say as they get older, they can't handle the alcohol, or it makes them feel worse, or it shows up differently than it did when you were much younger. So what does the alcohol do? Does it intensify anxiety? I mean, I did used to drink, and when I did drink in my 20s and stuff, it definitely intensified anxiety. But is that similar to what's happening in the years post menopause?
I mean, I'm going to really scare people off alcohol if I go down this path too much. And I just want to preface this by saying that, it's never all or nothing. And the anxious mind always wants to latch onto this kind of information. We start going down the realm of toxins in the environment and plastics, and we can freak ourselves out because it's everywhere and we can't escape it. All we can do is be informed by the information and make different choices to do our best that we can. With alcohol, it's kind of coming in our body from so many angles. As you were saying that, I'm like, how do I cover this question? Because it's often increasing or dysregulating our levels of inflammation in our body. And that is a whole element to some of the symptoms around perimenopause and menopause. It is putting a lot of burden on our liver, and our liver does the beautiful job of detoxifying particular hormones as well as alcohol from our body so that we're not getting imbalances happening. So if we're drinking alcohol, there's that impact that's happening on the liver. It's also influencing our gut microbiome. You think when you have a cut and you've hurt yourself, you're going to, if you don't have anything else available, you often are going to use an alcohol swab to disinfect the wound because you want to kill bacteria. there's all this bacteria in our gut and we're sloshing it down with alcohol. It's killing off your good bacteria when we drink, especially if we're drinking frequently. There'll always be those anomaly people who can just like drown themselves in alcohol every single day, and they seem to live to 100 and, you know, can also chain smoke and all of that. That's just life. Some people do have a greater level of resilience in one way or another, but I mean, we can question that person's quality of life as well. And certainly it will create that inflammation. And then, of course, we get the rebound effect with alcohol, where the next day we're often going to feel quite good when we have it initially. It's that, I feel relaxed. I've just like had a stressful day and I'm going to chill out with a glass of wine. But we'll feel the effects of it later. The next day, often we'll have that hangover where we have anxiety, and you'll notice it even with 1 or 2 drinks, especially as we do get older and we notice that we're more sensitive to these things. The other thing it impacts is our sleep quality. So it means we're getting lighter sleep. And during those hormonal changes, you don't need more of that. So it's kind of like if we take the alcohol out of the equation, we're removing this huge burden to all these beautiful systems in your body working really well, and just allowing your body to function at its best. Like any symptom, if you are experiencing a symptom that's unpleasant and uncomfortable, it's your body communicating to you, hey, come look after me. We can do this better. And often there are many changes we can make, and we're often really glad that we made the changes in the long run.
Yeah, we usually feel better after making these shifts. You know, I've never regretted becoming sober. So, and that's almost 8 years. So, you
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of freedom in those shifts in life that make us feel better and nourished and healthy and just loved.
It's one of those lessons where we end up thinking, you know, I'm actually glad I had that so that
Yeah.
I learned this, you know, or it can get us to that place where we have gratitude for our experience. And that's actually my ultimate aim, to get people that work with me to. It's ultimately seeing anxiety as this messenger that has been guiding us all along from a place of love. It's guiding us back to the love. It's saying, warning, warning, you're so far in fear right now. You're so far away from who you really are and the safety and the love that is seeking you. We're going to make you so uncomfortable, like hot coals, that you have to jump out of there and seek a solution. You have to listen to the anxiety and you have to make some changes. And those changes might be literally, you know, the big ones like get out of this marriage, get away from this person, quit that job. You know, they're the things people I think are really scared that we have to do. Sometimes maybe we need to, or we need to work towards that, but we can also do so much with, you know, get better sleep. Maybe that's what anxiety is trying to tell you. Really got to take this seriously. Or maybe alcohol isn't mixing with you like it used to, or maybe it really never has.